Hi, Chris McLoone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of Talking Trucks. With me, as always, for this is Ricky Riley, one of our advisory board members and fleet manager himself. Today, what we're going to talk about is it's not I would say anything concrete that we have right now. I just threw it out to Ricky before we came in. Just what's your wish list of things that you would like to see on Fire Apparatus? Ricky, you've been doing this a long time. I shouldn't say it like that, but you've been doing it a long enough time where you've got quite a bit of experience on both the volunteer side and the career side. You spec'd out a lot of vehicles. You got your consultancy that you run as well. FDIC instructor talking about all this stuff. We've talked about the specs. We've talked about, different things we can do with aerials and things like that, but we've never really talked about, and I'm kind of looking at this not only from your perspective as a fleet manager, but as a firefighter as well, having driven rigs for many years, having sat on the side of rigs for many years, maybe stood up on some of them back in the day. But
I did.
Kind of just wondering, like if I have my own ideas, and you can feel free to shoot them down later. But just to get us rolling, what are some things that over the years, you've just kind of been like, man, if we only had this, it would make fleet management easier, or would make operating them easier. What do you got?
I mean, fleet management is probably the biggest one that I focus on now, just because I don't like the downtime that it takes to do things. So, I mean, it's funny, and I know we're about talking trucks, but I just got back from doing a bunch of ambulance inspections on some new ambulances that we're buying, and there's a whole line of FDNY ambulances going through there. And you go over and look at this ambulance, and whoever wrote that spec, whoever had input into that spec, it makes the ambulance very expensive and very unique. So, I know you and I have talked numerous times about the manufacturers wanting to put us in a box, and hey, you can't get this, you can't get that. I've been to my chosen manufacturer here recently, and I got told no more than I've ever been told no in the last 30 years, which is upsetting because, I don't like being told no like any of us do. But at the same point, it's for them to go no and then go, because it's going to upset the line. It's a great idea what you want to do, but it's going to upset the line. And regardless, what kind of custom fire apparatus manufacturer you are, that line has to be like in the forefront of every thought process of every day for them. So I can't, I know that at my chosen manufacturers, the meetings that go on at like 8:00 in the morning and like 2 in the afternoon, where's the line? How's it moving? What's slowing it down? And I'm sure that goes on at every manufacturer, regardless of who they are. I mean, there's a methodology, there's a thought process, there is a way to manufacture things, and they have, a lot of them have that down pat. But to watch all the specific things, just for instance, even put on this ambulance, is that they're putting into their thought processes to, hey, we make the batteries so accessible. They're on this slide out tray. The cables are routed this particular way. They slide out with the tray. You can slide the tray out. The mechanic can get the batteries out completely without really having to do anything different. Having to wrestle with anything, wrestle with a door, holding a compartment up or tilting the cab, and then watching how they did their electrical compartments, where everything electrical and everything that is powered. So like your inverter, your battery charger, they have a whole bunch of other systems on there because they're also the clean idle ones, but everything's in one compartment. And then they have the whole electrical schematic is on the inside of this compartment door. And I'm like, man, just when I think that I got some of this stuff really good, the FDNY, as usual, goes up and shows somebody up. But it's just the sheer amount of activity they do, I'm sure, drives that. I mean, it used to be the same thing with Eddie Rice in DC. all the specific things that they do for their apparatus. We're no different. We do a lot of specific things with our apparatus, but not that detailed. So I think anything to help keep the rig in service by making it serviceable. So I mean, obviously, def tanks, def headers, the DEF canisters, and all that sort of stuff. If for somebody that's not into that, so I'm getting ready to go do a pre-engineering trip with a company out of PA that's close to you, and they don't care about that. I mean, they don't care that you can't get the def tank out without or the def canister without moving this piece or that piece, and they don't care how long it takes to get fixed. And I'm saying that probably a little bit of facetiousness, but I mean, it's not a thought process to go, hey, we need to make it so this is accessible. And we need to be able to get all the parts and pieces off of it without having to take 10 other pieces off. And that's the process that I think the FDNY does extremely well. I'm sure LA City does it, extremely well. And Washington, D.C. did it when Eddie Rice was there. Like I said, we do it a little bit, but, even talking about moving def canisters, moving def tanks, moving def headers. I mean, those are very touchy subjects when you get to the fire apparatus manufacturers and even the ambulance manufacturers. I mean, even like in particularly for us is that, hey, we want to move this air tank because it hangs too low. That's where the manufacturer of the chassis puts it. That's where it's staying. I'm like, look, I'm paying a lot of money for this thing, right? We need to get this moved. And this is my ambulance manufacturer, not the fire truck manufacturer. But I mean, that's a big deal. I think most of us, I was watching some podcasts that you've done here in the last month or whatever, and listen to people and listen to other people's podcasts that come out and they talk about, war wagons and all this other sort of stuff. But, that is just like putting parts and pieces, putting equipment in the right compartment or mounting them correctly, or what compartment's going to go here, what compartment's going to go there. That's easy manipulation. I think, I can take an older fire truck and turn it into a standardized rig that we have. But, to be able to fix that rig, that's a totally different story altogether. And I can't even fathom trying to get an electric fire truck of what all that's going to take and get in there. But I think most of mine is based on serviceability. And that I think because that lowers the out of service time. It lowers the time at the dealer because, you'd have to think that a guy or a dealership that works on fire trucks all day long, you go out on that shop floor and listen to those mechanics for like a half a day, and they are cursing their own manufacturer up one side, down the other, because where they mounted this or where they mounted that. And the engineers never thought about the mechanic. And, you just never get those two people in the same room sometimes to have those kind of discussions to go, yeah, you can't put the air filter there. You can't put the fuel water separator there because of this and that. But that's where it fits. That's where it fits on the fire truck. And we don't want to have to redesign the fire truck. But, I'd say the FDNY, the LAs, the DCs, and us a little bit, we push that envelope because for us, the most important thing is having the truck in service. Our fire stations have one fire engine. And when that fire engine goes out of service, they got to get into a reserve. And how many reserves we have out in the fleet. And this is for multitude of fire departments across the country. So I'm not just thinking the FDNY is it or anything like that, but like for your department, if your frontline engine goes out, you have a backup engine there ready to slide right in there and go to work, without any interruption of service. So, you're like, okay, that can go out and get fixed and not have a consequence. For us, it's a consequence because, hey, the frontline engine goes out. It's either going to stay at our place and get fixed, or it's going to go out to the dealer and get fixed. And how quick they fix it helps the health of the fleet. That we have frontline units in service, reserves are reserves, and everything's ready to go every day. So, long answer to your short question.
Do you get a lot of pushback from either manufacturer regarding things like that about serviceability?
Oh, yeah.
And if so, is it because it's disrupting the line? Is that what the main issue is, or is it the engineering time it's going to take to move that air tank or whatever, I forget, it was an
Yeah,
air
whatever
tank.
it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
out of
wherever it
this
is.
spot to put it into this spot so it can get worked on. Is that the
Well, hey, we're not going to touch, so the ambulance is, this chassis, name the chassis, Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge, Freightliner, whatever. That's the chassis. Then you have the box manufacturer. And I know our fire truck people are having a heart attack because we're talking about ambulances, but it's the same way with, fire apparatus manufacturers that, you go to my manufacturer that I choose all the time and go, where we mount that fuel water separator is okay on the last 55 rigs that went out of here. Why do we have to move it for you? Here's the I don't want to move it cost, that we're going to give you. And then, so that kind of gauges how important it is to us. But then once again, we got to, the engineers got to get involved. We're going to have to rerun airlines. We're going to have to rerun electric. And then where's it actually going to go? And then how's it going to get mounted there? And what is getting in the way of it now? Even, for us, we can roll back on a creeper or put a fire truck on a lift and go, yeah, that should go here, not here. And it looks real simple to us, the non-engineer person that I am. Yeah, just move it right there. It looks like it's got a space. And that can cause a whole mound of eggs for an engineer or for the person that's making the fabrication parts or putting it on there. But man, they do not want to do that stuff anymore. I think they are really sensitive to disrupting the line and disrupting and having a full customized piece of fire apparatus unless you are that big name. I mean, and I'm not a big name. The FDNY is a big name, but I think they're even experiencing pushback on a lot of their special stuff. And, I've just heard bits and pieces. It doesn't mean I've talked to the horse, and had somebody from the FDNY fleet say, hey, yeah, my manufacturer of this fire truck is telling me that I can't do this or that. So it's interesting to watch. I think my biggest thing was being told no here recently. And I think that is all because we can't have your fire trucks clogging up the line for the other 40, for instance, that are okay with this air tank being where it is. And once again, we're just using an air tank as an example.
right?
It could be a special compartment. It could be a special ladder placement. It could be a special discharge, whatever it is. I mean, I was astonished how many times I was told no. And I'm like, this is a good idea. I got a room full of people that ride these things sitting here, and they all say it's a good idea, and we know it can work because we've gone out there and looked at it and seen it. I said, nope, can't do it. It's too much engineering time, and too much of a disruption. And they don't tell the engineering part. They tell you the disruption to the line is just like hints. Just got little hints. And you hope I guess they're hoping the light bulb comes on. So
how do you know when to stop pushing for it? So like you want it, because I think you even said it, in one of your webcasts it might have been in the final inspection, or maybe it was the engineering conference, where I don't think it was don't take no for an answer, but it was I guess it's almost like don't take it initially. Make them prove it almost to you. Make them explain it to you. Don't just take the no. But how do you know when you've pushed enough and not that they're, I don't think they would take the job away, but I guess when do you know when you're really becoming a pest?
Eddie Rice is the biggest pest in the world. But I meant his fire trucks were tight, man. They were, because he pushed and he pushed and he pushed and he pushed. And he's not doing that. Eddie's retired, but he's not doing that in this climate. He did that in the pre-COVID climate, or in the beginning of COVID climate. In this climate today, I think they're just, I push and push and push, and the cost, we just can't do that. And then, to the point now where we're not going to do it. Ricky, your committee, we're just not going to do that. And then, okay, I guess I get it now. But if it's an operational thing, and a couple of our things were, And as we worked with a mid mount, trying to get more scrub surface at 0 or below, is that we were really fighting hard to get that, because that's what a mid mount tower is supposed to do. That's the benefit of buying one, is to get at 0 below scrub surface to fight the strip shopping center fires, the commercial fires and stuff like that. And man, they just wouldn't budge. And you just got to get to the point. Go, how much longer are we going to argue this before we're sacrificing something else? We're sacrificing page 3 of the list, or page 4 of the list, or page 5 of the list, and we have 2 to 3 days to do this engineering conference, and because people have to get back to work, and we have to get this done, and we have to get it in, and we have to meet the timeline, and we can't hold up the production of the fire truck because we going to go, hey, we want to go back and look at this, talk about it, and the clock just keeps ticking. Depending on what manufacturer at, ours is, we're 2 to 3 and 2.5 years into the purchase of the rig, the build, before we do engineering. So I mean, we're up against the clock. As soon as this engineering meeting's done and we sign the print and we get all the questions back from the engineers, that truck is on the next step. We're going to start bending metal and we're going to start putting your truck together. So any time that delay that we have in there, arguing these points or protracting it out, taking it back to the fire department to talk about, and then having the engineer, we're going back and forth about it, is just putting time into your truck. Now, there's some manufacturers that do it at the front end, so like within 60 days of signing your contract, you're doing an engineering conference. And, I hate that, because there's 2 years of technology and new pieces that are going to come in. But you just got to know I think you got to know your manufacturer. So, we know ours really well because we've been buying from them for so long, and I've been buying them for so long. Eddie Rice had his, Mark had his from New York, and, all these people have these relationships, and you gotta foster those. As much as some people go in there as thinking it's an adversarial relationship. And look, I can be the angry guy just as much as the next person, but at the end of the day, it doesn't get, being angry does not get me what I want usually. So, you gotta have that person there. I have a person at my manufacturer that's an engineer, and Ricky, you're just not going to get that, and,
is that stuff you can do a pre-con though? So it doesn't.
Oh man, we argue it all day long. We're arguing from the minute the truck gets, slated, till we talk about it. And then, the bad part of it is they give us 3 years to think about them now. There's 3 years, 2 to 2.5, 3 years of me or new members of my committee or people in the field going, hey, this truck just got built in Pennsylvania. It's got this on it. How come we don't have that on ours? So it's their fault that I'm sure they don't want to hear that. It's the manufacturer's fault for giving us all this time to go, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. And now it's at engineering. We're like, hey, pre-con was a while ago, and now we're at engineering, and we have all these new ideas. We have different things. We've looked at different rigs. You did it on this one. Usually, well, we really didn't do it on that one. It just looks like it. You got to understand this part and that part. But asking the question, getting to know the people at your manufacturer, and not become, you don't got to be best buds, go out to dinner, but have some kind of working relationship, where you can have that kind of conversation with them. And, I trust the engineer, Dave Archer at my manufacturer. Man, what a phenomenal guy. Wicked smart, a lot smarter than I am, knows a lot more about fire trucks than I'll ever know, and just go, that's a great idea. And we can manufacture, but it's going to take this amount of time. It's going to push your truck back this far. And then we really don't want to do it because you're going to hold the line up or something, whatever that. Dave didn't say that, by the way, to make sure his employer doesn't know that, but that's an example of what it would happen. So
I got a few of my own I wanted to run by you. And I think that probably you're going to know right away whether I'm off my rocker, or if it's something that we might see someday, because you do this a lot more of the you're much more into the nuts and bolts of this, and certainly on the spec side of this. The one thing I would love to see And this is not, I want to make sure it's not taken as a knock on this particular technology. Um, but I do still think it has a ways to go. And that's, I would love to very soon see multiplexing become mature. Like, I would like to see it become, like, reach its maturity level and also reach a new reliability level. I've had two different, I hear different things about it. I've sat in on conferences where, they say, yeah, it's great when it works. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work most of the time, but when it goes down, it's tough. Now, from a maintenance perspective, I don't know if in your world that's made your life a lot easier, if it's made it more difficult. I know that at times it sounds like tracking down where the issue is, like, say, like all of a sudden your lights don't go on anymore. Or, you're driving along and the headlights go out, and they're controlled by that as well. They're not always controlled by that, but sometimes they are. It seems like a technology that hasn't quite reached its maturity level yet. And because of that, there are still some reliability issues. But you're going to smack me in the head, I can tell.
I totally disagree.
Really? Okay.
The mechanics that work for me love multiplexing, and they love the maturity that is on our apparatus. There's different types. There's obviously different manufacturers do it different ways, but they love it. I mean, it cuts down on diagnostic. It tells them where to go find it. It's easy to read the input-output modules, the power modules. And I have an older mechanic. I have a mechanic that's older than me, that's out there, and he's a master technician for the brand, for the brand manufacturer that we use. But I mean, if he can understand it, the younger people absolutely want to understand it. Because it's on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
It's searchable. It's every, if this is the problem, it's going through this input output, or it's going through this power module, or it's in this section of the truck, as opposed to before this mechanic worked for us, he worked for a dealer, and it was on Kentland's rescue engine, as a matter of fact, that we've talked about in the past. But I mean, they had an electrical problem, and it took him almost a day and a half to find a shorted out a hose bed light up top. That's what the short was. But it took him a day and a half taking apart, the interior shelves and, gaining access to the electrical panels and everything. And just, but with multiplexing, he'd been able to tell that it's in this portion of the truck. He wouldn't have had to search the rest of the truck. But we just recently had the same thing with one of the tillers with a sensor that kept going off, and he's able to track it down. He's like, hey, the wire's good from here to here. We're good from this power module, this power module. Let's move to the next one. It ended up being that the connector, into the module was zip tied too tight, and was pulling on the wires. And when they hit a bump, it's like, man, that mechanics are, they're something else, man. I never, like I know I've said 100 times before on our shows, like I never would have thought a mechanic would just be one of my idols. With like, you never crawled down a hallway with me, you never forced a door, you never ridden a fire truck with me. But the way they're able to figure these fire apparatus out, and they like them. I mean, but there are people, within an hour of this place, within an hour of where I'm at, will tell you that we are 100% never going to have multiplexing. We think it's the dumbest thing in the world. We want relay logic, and that's great for you, pal.
I don't want it to come out like I dislike multiplexing.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
It's just I'm hoping it reaches that maturity level where it's a mature technology, and it just seems a lot. It's not that it's not usable. I'm not doing a very good job of articulating.
Well, I mean, I think you're speaking to what every mechanic, what every firefighter that tells me that they don't like it, is that they don't know the exact where they want to put their finger on the pulse of what's wrong with it, but there's something wrong with it. And then that's fine, till it gets dispelled. And it's it's part of our specification. I mean, you can't buy a fire truck without multiplex
Well,
wiring.
I see a time when you won't. I mean, like every car we get into is multiplex. So I mean, I have to think that at some point there's going to become a time when it just becomes so pervasive you can't do it the other way anymore. I'm sure there will be. I got one department in my mind that will probably forever do the relay logic.
Yeah,
but
and
but
that's
anyway,
and I bet you that is going to cost extra soon.
Yeah, that's when it becomes. That's when it goes the other way.
I don't know when that is, but I mean, I have a feeling relay logic is going to be, because of the amount of wire, just the sheer amount of wire they have to put in, and the terminals and the relays and
plus with everything getting so intelligent anymore. I mean, even your light bars are intelligent now. I mean that's not something that's easily done. With I don't think with the relays. So,
but I mean, I would say the thing that with the technology that is frustrating to me that I want to see work, and you're beating up multiplexing. I know you're not beating it up, but
right.
But I'm beating up like the telematics. There's more than one manufacturer that out there goes. You can now with my brain module that I put in your fire truck. Now you're able to look on your computer and it tells you everything about the fire truck. What's wrong, what check engine light came on, if the stop engine light came on, what the problems are, what the mileage is, what the fluid levels are. And man, that technology, and I have been buying it and hoping that it matures, because I'm just thinking there has to be a way, there has to be a computer geek somewhere that can figure this out, that all this data that we're retrieving from the apparatus, based on the engine control module, the transmission control modules that are on a Cummins or a PACCAR, all that stuff's there, and it tells the engine what to do. It tells the engine, when to fire pistons, how much oil it needs, how much coolant it needs, what happens here, when the fan's got to kick on, and it's got to be able to tell me, hey, how many hours are on it and how many miles are on it, and how come I can't get that through Wi-Fi off the fire truck somehow. And there's systems out there, and I've only messed with a couple of them, but that is a technology that I should be able to sit at my desk, pull up a desktop, a dashboard, and go, engine 3, click. This is how much time's left on the fuel life. This is just like on your car. How much fuel's in it, how much water's in it, how much coolant's in it. When was the last check engine light, and what was the actual problem with the check engine light, not some digital numbering system that you got to go to another pamphlet to open it up. It should just say low coolant, no coolant, this is wrong, that's wrong, whatever it is, but
that's like plain speak for telematics. Plain speak for telematics.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's one of the ones that that you sparked that's what I want to see on a fire truck. I mean, that is, because the amount of times that drivers, and I can't fault them as much as I like to beat them up some days, is that, hey, it's 3:00 in the morning and they're calling me, they're calling the garage supervisor, they're calling a mechanic. Hey, we got a check engine light. And I'm like, all right, what, is there any other lights on? I should just be able to go to my phone, click on that dashboard and go, oh, you're low on coolant. Go put some coolant in it and quit waking me up at 3:00 in the morning. Or, hey, you got a real problem, put the truck out of service, and go swap in the reserve. So, I think there's more than one manufacturer, I'm sure, that's trying to play catch up to that, but that is one that needs to mature a lot quicker than it is. So,
and I think that the multiplexing is almost there, in terms of being, like that truly mature technology, and at least in terms of our fire trucks. I know it certainly is in other areas. So now this one is just sort of a practical thing, but I don't know. You might tell me that's just not doable. I don't know if there's a DOT regulation on this, but I was just thinking about it the other day. Bigger screens. I mean, like I can get a real pretty big, pretty big screen in my car, but I'm still sort of looking at as big as these trucks are. I'd love to have something a little bigger to look at than. I feel like we've been looking at the smaller screens for quite some time now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing a bigger one. What do you think? Is that like a DOT thing where it can't block, the windshield at all? Because that's where it would probably end up. Well, I guess not. I
Yeah.
mean, I got MDCs and all kinds of stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm the GMC truck I want to buy. The reason I'm buying it is because of the screen that's in between the driver and the passenger. I mean, it's huge. It's like an iPad, and I'm like, well, I mean, that could be because I'm wearing these, or it could be because I just like technology, new technology. But yeah, there's no reason why they can't. I can't think that they can't put that in there. But most of them are sealed units. So,
Gotcha.
when you take that screen out, it's just one plug that goes into the back of that thing. And, but I mean, I don't know why they can't make it bigger.
Could
But
be. It's just my wish. I wouldn't mind seeing.
It's definitely going to make things interesting in the cab. That's for sure. We're going to be able to have to dim it for night driving.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
What is going to fly across the cab and hit the screen? They're all not indestructible. I mean, but I would love it. I would think that our firefighters and paramedics and men and women that are driving these rigs today would love it because it's something they're more used to. So I mean, even the muck screens and everything like that are in fire apparatus today, we're still a lot of navigation by push button rather than touch screen. So I mean, I'm sure somebody's working on it and something's happening with it, but it hasn't made it to where you want it or I would want it if I was still driving one of those. So
my last thing is just it really comes down to the people speccing the truck and probably trade-offs that they need to make. But I would love to have more space without having to widen the cab. Especially, I mean, like even sometimes driving, it's a little tight, but I know that officer side gets pretty tight. Now, I know a lot of that's got to do with the engine and things like that. But man, I would love it if we could devise a way to give at least the driver and officer a little bit more space. Obviously, in the back, I'd that varies from department to department, and if you insist on having 8 seats back there, I don't even think you can anymore with the way the standard's written. But if you insist on having 8 seats back there, you're going to run out of space. I mean, like most places, it's probably not that much of an issue in the back because they're probably running with 4 seats tops, depending on what, if it's a career department, depending on what, what their crew size is, what their standard crew size is. But man, I would love to be able to have more space in the front there. It's only me, so I realize I'm the screw up here. But I'll tell you, I cannot tell you the number of times I get into the officer's seat, and I don't ride the seat that much anymore because I do actually more driving than I do riding the seat. But man, I cannot seem to get into that seat without bumping the SCBA and setting off the pass alarm. I don't know what it is. But it's however it's, and I'm a tall guy. I'm lanky though. Yeah. So I'm not like, we're not talking about like a real, I'm not huge by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't know what it is. I hit that.
I mean, there's a lot of cabs made by different manufacturers that are 100 inches wide. And that gives you the extra 4 inches from the standard 96. But how 4 inches isn't a lot to when you're talking about cab width and right. What you're going to deal with. But if even like getting in a new piece of apparatus today, as you get in like that officer seat, you may have some room like at shoulder height, but when you get to your waist down, that floor where that motor is going to go in between you and the driver, that is a finite number, man. That is that number. And, that's why they have all the angles and everything to try to give you the illusion of how much more space you have. But, that number at your feet, and you can barely get a set of bunker pants in there and get them to sit flat on the floor and then try to get all the rest of your stuff in there. but that's about as wide as you can get, is from like the width of
Yeah.
your bunker pants to the edge of the door, to the edge of the motor housing.
Yep.
And it's just the angles that they try to do to get that stuff. What helps with that a little bit is multiplexing, because there's less wire.
Well, there you go. See, there you are. See,
but I mean, how much cabinetry you're putting in there.
Mhm.
We've talked about it once again on different podcasts, whatever. Is that, firefighters, like to ride looking forward. They like to have a clean view of what's going on out there, until we get in there and decide, oh, well, let's put this rack here. Let's put this compartment inside here. Let's put some lights. Let's put some portable radios, thermal imager. Just keep crowding and crowding. I mean, the only person that's got the best seat in the whole fire truck is the driver. They seem to give him or her the most room. They got the wraparound console and everything, just so they got room. But even the firefighters in the back, they're a little challenged. For you, like even sitting, we concentrated on this a long time ago, and we really haven't thought about it because it's so ingrained in us now. Is the seat height in the back to where firefighters are not riding with their knees above their waist. So I imagine that has to be a problem for you, as tall as you are. That is just a very uncomfortable position to be sitting in. But as we raise the seat height, we're also worried about now is that when we roll the window down, I know you're supposed to be seat belted in, stuff flying out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Preferably not firefighters, but stuff that's sitting on that high seat.
Mm-hmm.
That you'll see a lot of those rigs that have the high floors or the high seats, to give you that knees below your hips, is that they'll have a safety bar across there mounted in the window. So, you can't go out that window. We have them in our apparatus. There were certainly a lot of apparatus that you go to FDIC and see all that stuff. So it's all good.
Oh, well, those are my big three. And like I said, the more room, I know that's sort of it is what it is. But if I had my wish, it would be great to be able to get a little more without having to widen the cab. But you just mentioned FDIC, and you've got a couple of classes going on there. Talk about what you're doing at FDIC this year. One, you're teaming up with somebody, and one you're handling on your own.
Yeah. Well, obviously we got our board meeting for Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment Magazine that usually I get in, all the food's gone, and I don't have a seat by the time I get there, just because of what time my class is. But I choose that. I choose that class now. So, So for the last couple of years, it's been building apparatus to do work. We kind of changed it up to kind of meld with fire apparatus, because ours is talking trucks. So my class this year is talking rigs, just to kind of, because I think, the format that you give us here, the opportunity that you give me to talk about apparatus, that, to make sure I pay a little homage to the fire apparatus and for what you've put together for us here at Fire Apparatus. So once again, that is that class. We'll talk about all, I'm sure there'll be a slide in there about how my apparatus manufacturer is telling me no a lot more. But, just anything that we've kind of learned over the last year with our engineering conferences, our pre-cons, our final deliveries, which we'll be going out with here soon. Anything that we knew that we learned about our manufacturer that could be, go across all manufacturers. We'll talk about new options. Maybe by this time they'll have Chris's iPad mounted in there. Who knows? But we're going to talk all things truck for an hour and 45 minutes. And that's on Wednesday, right after opening ceremony is my class. I like doing that 10:30 class, get it done and go through. The bigger one is, since I'm on my screen, I don't know which one I'm at there. It's Tower Ladder Tactics with my mentor and hero, Mike Champo. That's of all things, that is a hybrid workshop, whereas there's 2 hours of classroom and then 2 hours of hands-on. And then we do one class in the morning, one class in the afternoon. We're doing it on Thursday. I don't Mike was trying to explain to me why this is a good thing, and I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure all the big wigs at FDIC and above us at the advisory board level have figured this out, that's when Mike should be teaching it. Because, I just change the slides and move stuff around. But once again, that's a great class. You sit in the classroom for a little while, then we're going to go out and touch tower ladders and do setups. And Champ's going to teach you all the little things that he used to do in New York City that probably nobody's ever thought of before or should probably do for that matter. But they all work for Champ, and they're great tips and techniques. And God knows what else I'll get involved in while I'm out there. Who knows what you're going to get me involved in, Chris? But
we've got a list.
Yeah, I got a lot of good friends. My buddy Tony Kelleher's teaching on Tuesday at a workshop. I can't wait. He's had to take a break because of getting married, having a kid, becoming an operations chief for the Washington D.C. Fire Department. But he's doing a workshop on Tuesday morning that I can't wait to go see. What a charismatic leader he is, and just phenomenal person. And his view on the fire service. I mean, any place he goes raises the level of that fire department, raises the level of that company, raises the level of that shift with the way that he trains, the way he motivates people, the way that he makes sure that you never forget history of your fire department. And just look, man, if you're there on Tuesday, I know it's a little extra to go to his class. It'll be well worth it. He is so contagious of a speaker. I'm just a Radiohead, blah, blah, blah. This kid is so charismatic and so educated on the craft that it is firefighting, and how to do it is, don't miss it if you can. Otherwise, come see the Champ, because he'll tell you a bunch of stories and they'll all be great. So, and I'll change the slide for him. So.
We can find out all about those two classes that Ricky's involved in, plus Tony Kelleher's class, all at FDIC.com. Make sure that if you are planning to go to any of those classes, that you do register for them, because there are I don't want to say limited spots, but there is a point where the classes can't take any more students. So. Well, again, Ricky, thank you. You didn't smack me too hard upside the head with any of my wish list items. So thanks for joining me.
That's what editors are supposed to do.
But thank you again for joining me for another Talking Trucks. If anyone has if anyone wants to smack me upside the head for anything I said today, please let me know. I'm at chris.mcclune@clarionevents.com. But also use that email address if you have a topic that you would like Ricky and I to hit on, or any other topics. As I've said before, we have a host of subject matter experts that we can have on the show to discuss just about anything apparatus or equipment related that you can come up with. So let me know. Again, it's chris.mcclune@clarionevents.com. So again, my thanks to Ricky for sitting down with me today to talk some trucks. Have a good one, everybody, and stay safe.